Imagine waking up to find that your life savings could barely buy a loaf of bread. Now imagine that by lunchtime, it couldn't even buy that. This wasn't a dystopian fantasy. This was Germany in 1923, where money became so worthless that people used it to wallpaper their homes and children built towers with stacks of banknotes in the street. Before we begin, if you love deep dives into economic history and the rise and fall of empires, hit that subscribe button for Empire of Wealth and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. In just 90 days during the summer and fall of 1923, the German mark experienced one of the most catastrophic collapses in monetary history. A single US dollar went from being worth thousands of marks to trillions. This is the story of how money died, and how it destroyed an entire society in the process. To understand how Germany reached this point, we need to go back to 1918, when World War I ended in defeat. The Treaty of Versailles didn't just reshape borders. It imposed crushing reparations on Germany that would echo through the decades. The bill? 132 billion gold marks, equivalent to roughly $500 billion today. Germany was expected to pay this astronomical sum to the Allied powers, primarily France and Belgium, as compensation for war damages. But here's the problem: Germany's economy was shattered. Its industrial heartland was disrupted, millions of men were dead or disabled, and its merchant fleet had been confiscated. The Weimar Republic, Germany's new democratic government, faced an impossible choice. They could either implement brutal austerity, slashing spending and raising taxes to meet their obligations, or they could try to inflate their way out of the problem. They chose inflation. The German Reichsbank began printing money. At first, this seemed manageable. The mark had already declined during the war, losing about half its value by 1918. But the government convinced itself that more currency was needed to stimulate the economy and meet reparations payments. They believed they could control the process. They were catastrophically wrong. By 1921, the mark was already in trouble. What had been 4 marks to the dollar before the war had become 75 marks to the dollar. Prices were rising, but Germans could still afford their daily needs. The real crisis was just beginning. In January 1923, the spark that would ignite complete disaster arrived in the form of French and Belgian troops. Germany had fallen behind on coal and timber reparations deliveries, and France's Prime Minister Raymond Poincaré had run out of patience. French and Belgian forces occupied the Ruhr Valley, Germany's industrial heartland. This region produced 80% of Germany's coal and steel. It was the engine of the German economy, and now it was under foreign military control. The Weimar government's response was defiant but economically suicidal. They ordered a policy of passive resistance. Workers were told to strike and refuse cooperation with the occupying forces. Government employees in the region were instructed not to follow orders from the occupation authorities. But here's the catch: the government promised to continue paying all these workers salaries even though they weren't producing anything. Coal miners went on strike, but still received their wages. Factory workers refused to work, but the government checks kept coming. Where would this money come from? The printing press, of course. The Reichsbank went into overdrive. New money flooded the economy at an unprecedented rate, but nothing was being produced to back it up. The Ruhr, which had been generating wealth for the nation, was now shut down. The government was pumping billions of marks into an economy that was simultaneously shrinking. The inflation that had been serious now became catastrophic. In January 1923, the dollar stood at 18,000 marks. By July, it had reached 350,000 marks. But this was just the beginning of the real nightmare. August 1923 marked the beginning of the true hyperinflation. What had been a serious economic problem became a complete breakdown of the monetary system. In the span of just 90 days, the German mark went from being barely functional to completely worthless. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. On August 1st, $1 equaled about 1 million marks. By September 1st, it was 13 million. By October 1st, 242 million marks. And by November 1st, 130 billion marks to the dollar. By mid-November, when the crisis peaked, the exchange rate reached 4.2 trillion marks to a single dollar. Let me put that in perspective. In January 1923, you could buy a loaf of bread for 250 marks. By November, that same loaf of bread cost 200 billion marks. The price doubled not annually, not monthly, not even daily, but sometimes every few hours. Germans developed strategies to survive in this insane economy. Workers demanded to be paid multiple times per day because their wages would lose half their value by evening. People would rush from the factory directly to the store, sometimes while their spouses waited at the shop entrance to start buying the moment they arrived. Restaurants stopped printing prices on menus because they changed too fast. Instead, waiters would announce the current price when you ordered, and then announce a different price when the bill came. People learned to order the most expensive items first because they would be calculated at older, lower prices. Farmers refused to sell food for paper money. They demanded payment in goods, gold, or foreign currency. City dwellers starved while the countryside hoarded food. The social contract that held Germany together was dissolving. The Reichsbank couldn't print money fast enough. They ran their presses day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They commissioned private printing companies to help. At one point, over 300 different printing companies were producing banknotes. The paper and ink for currency became one of Germany's major expenses. But they still couldn't keep up. The government started issuing emergency money called Notgeld. Cities, companies, even individual businesses issued their own currency because there literally weren't enough official banknotes to go around. A country that started the year with millions of marks in circulation ended it with trillions, and it still wasn't enough. The social impact of hyperinflation was devastating in ways that pure economics can't capture. Life savings evaporated overnight. A pension that could have supported a comfortable retirement became worthless. Middle-class families who had spent generations building wealth found themselves impoverished. The elderly were hit hardest. People who had worked their entire lives, saved diligently, and looked forward to a secure retirement found their savings couldn't buy a single meal. Suicides increased dramatically among pensioners who saw no way forward. But hyperinflation created winners too, and this bred tremendous resentment. Anyone with debts benefited enormously. You could take out a mortgage for 100,000 marks to buy a house, and a few months later pay it off with what amounted to pocket change. Businesses with foreign currency reserves or physical assets thrived while their competitors collapsed. Speculation became the only rational economic activity. Holding money was financial suicide, so Germans spent everything immediately. They bought anything physical, anything real. Furniture, artwork, jewelry, even empty bottles had value because they were tangible. Money itself had become the most worthless commodity. Crime exploded. Theft became rampant as people grew desperate. Prostitution increased as women found no other way to survive. The black market flourished while the legitimate economy crumbled. Trust between people evaporated as everyone scrambled to survive. The psychological impact was profound. Germans who had believed in hard work, saving, and playing by the rules felt betrayed. The social order that had defined their lives proved to be built on paper promises that could simply vanish. This experience would haunt Germany for generations and create a deep cultural fear of inflation that persists even today. Perhaps most ominously, hyperinflation destroyed faith in democratic institutions. The Weimar Republic was associated with this disaster. Many Germans began looking for alternatives, for strong leaders who promised simple solutions. The chaos of 1923 planted seeds that would bear terrible fruit a decade later. By November 1923, Germany faced complete economic collapse. Something had to change or the state itself might cease to function. The government finally took decisive action. On November 15, 1923, Germany introduced a new currency, the Rentenmark. 1 Rentenmark was declared equal to 1 trillion old paper marks. This wasn't just redenomination. It was backed by real assets, specifically mortgages on land and industrial capital. Most importantly, the government committed to limiting how many could be printed. The man behind this plan was Hjalmar Schacht, who would become president of the Reichsbank. He understood that confidence was everything. The Rentenmark had to represent something real, and its supply had to be strictly controlled. No more printing money to solve problems. Amazingly, it worked. Almost overnight, Germans accepted the new currency. Prices stabilized. People began using money normally again. The hyperinflation ended almost as quickly as it had spiraled out of control, once the government showed credible commitment to sound money. But the damage was done. An entire generation had learned that money could become worthless, that savings meant nothing, and that the government couldn't be trusted. The middle class, traditionally the backbone of democratic society, had been destroyed. Many would never fully recover. The economic consequences extended beyond Germany. The Ruhr occupation ended in July 1925 when France realized it was counterproductive. The reparations question was partially resolved through the Dawes Plan, which restructured payments and brought American loans into the picture. But the underlying tensions remained. Politically, the hyperinflation undermined the Weimar Republic fatally. While the immediate crisis passed, Germans remembered which government had presided over the disaster. The political extremes gained strength while the moderate center weakened. The Nazis, who had attempted their failed beer hall putsch during the chaos of 1923, would eventually capitalize on the lingering resentment and instability. Hyperinflation also had global ripples. It became a cautionary tale studied by economists worldwide. The trauma experienced by Germans influenced economic policy in ways we still see today. Germany's modern insistence on price stability and central bank independence stems directly from this catastrophic experience. The Weimar hyperinflation remains one of the most extreme economic disasters in modern history. In just 90 days during the summer and fall of 1923, an entire monetary system collapsed, taking with it the savings, security, and social stability of millions of people. This wasn't just an economic event. It was a social catastrophe that reshaped German society and politics for decades. The psychological scars ran deep. Trust in institutions, faith in currency, belief in the future itself had been shattered. The lessons remain relevant today. Hyperinflation shows us what happens when governments abandon fiscal discipline and when political pressures override economic reality. It demonstrates how quickly a currency can lose its value once confidence erodes. And it reminds us that money is ultimately based on trust, a collective agreement that can be broken with terrible consequences. Germany recovered from hyperinflation, but it never fully recovered from the trauma. The memory of worthless money and destroyed savings lingered in the German consciousness. That fear shaped economic policy for generations and continues to influence European monetary policy even now, a century later. When money dies, it takes more than purchasing power with it. It takes security, stability, and social cohesion. The German mark died in 90 days in 1923, but the effects of its death lasted far longer, shaping the course of history in ways that extended far beyond economics into the darkest chapters of the 20th century. The Weimar hyperinflation stands as a stark reminder: sound money isn't just an economic necessity. It's a foundation of civilized society itself. If you enjoyed this deep dive into economic history, make sure you're subscribed to Empire of Wealth and hit that notification bell. We explore the forces that build and destroy empires, from ancient Rome to modern economies. Drop a comment below: what economic disaster should we cover next? Thanks for